I would invite Sharanya to give a formal introduction to Nipun.
This is a hard moment for me to introduce somebody like Nipun, but I'm going to really try. It's a great pleasure to have Nipun at Vedika today, and it's a great joy for me to have the two most influential people together in the same room, which is Shunaji and Nipun. In many spheres of my life, I have taken inspiration from him because I've known him for 4 years and Shunaji for the past year. Since most of you would have probably gotten the Samvad and read the intro, so I'm not going to go into the details of what he has done, but just a brief summary and few stories that I would like to share. He's the co-founder of Charity Focus, which is the organization he's involved in for the past couple of years, many years. Wherever I make mistakes, please correct me.
Oh no, there's no mistakes.
So the stories that some of that Somik and I have talked about and heard from Nipun personally too. One of them was when he was invited after co-founding Charity Focus to United Nations to give a talk. He made a big list of the things he would talk about, but when he went there and he saw all the people ahead of him talk about different things and exaggerate about their organization and ask for donations, he decided not to do any of that, and he didn't even bring up the name of Charity Focus, but instead just talked about the values of Charity Focus, which are love and generosity. And at the end of it, when the whole conference was over, people just followed him and mobbed him, and they wanted to know more about which organization he came from. And that was a pretty fascinating story for us. The second one, which was about, so he'll talk about smile cards, which is a big part of Charity Focus, about tagging people anonymously. And I remember when we first met him, this was about 4 years ago, and this was our second brief introduction, and we were sitting in Karma Kitchen to eat dinner, and suddenly Nipun comes to our table and opens his wallet and takes out whatever money he has, he didn't even count, and tells us to go give this to a monk who'd just eaten his meal and was walking out. And we were like, okay, we'll do that. And he's like, don't tell him I did it. And it was supposed to be tagging anonymously, and it totally put us to shame as to, you know, somebody just doing an act of kindness like that without even counting. And so we added some more to it, and then went and gave it to the monk, and you know, it was kind of an embarrassing moment, taking the credit for doing something which we weren't exactly doing it from our own space. So that was one of the stories of Smile Card, of, you know, giving and receiving, and it's such a joy. With Smile Card, I would also want to share one more incident where, you know, we were, the Smile Cards are actually, you'll see them, it's tagging people anonymously. So we had those, and you know, when you have a bunch of those, you don't know how to tag people. And so we did that in a toll booth where we gave the money for the car behind us and just handed over a smile card, and it's amazing to see how strangers smile at you, wave at you, and give you flying kisses, and you're like, wow, this is so amazing. And the only thing that you can do in return is do it for somebody else. And it's a pretty amazing experience of joy, of giving and receiving. The third thing I wanted to talk about was an eye journey. This is something that they do every Wednesday. It's not just, so Nipun is by himself a great epitome of Seva, but he gets it all from his parents, who are just amazing, amazing people, and I'll address them as uncle and auntie. So every Wednesday they open their house, and there's a 1-hour meditation session followed by a circle of sharing, which is sort of similar to ours, but it has a context, it has a secular thought each week. And then after that, an hour of sharing, there's meal prepared by auntie. And auntie has a full-time job, but she does this amazing meal without any expectation. And every week there are a new set of people. Sometimes people get repeated, but it's usually 60, 70 people each week. And it's amazing how she's been doing this for 14 years. without a single stop in a Wednesday, and it goes on. And with that, like, it's amazing that he's among us today because his schedule is really busy and he's in demand, and he agreed to come and share this space with us. So with that, that's Nipun. Thank you for coming to Vedika. Welcome.
It was great. You should share more stories of my parents.
I will leave that to you.
Charanya and Somik are personal friends, and there are many students here who are here because of Nipun, I think. What's your story here?
Well, first of all, I heard for a couple of years about this soul named Nipun, and Nipun Bai's birthday. I remember calling you on New Year's Eve from the Chinese chocolate pizza station that we were all hanging out in the Muslim section of this Hindu city, and how happy everyone was to call you and wish you. And
they were all doing acts of kindness as a paid-forward gift. So their gift to me was to do a small act of kindness in the local community.
And a lot of us didn't even know you at that time, and yet we could feel
you were
your
inspired
presence.
by what had started.
Yeah, and so I knew that there was some magic around this person, and then I think a year or two later, I remember I met Nipun Bai, and we had spent this amazing day going to different organic farms and meeting all kinds of other really inspiring, amazing
And then
souls.
through him you met Somik Bai.
And then I came back to America, drove to the West Coast, went to Nipun Bai's parents' home, where I had met Somik Bai, and then through Somik Bai, I came here. So it's all thanks.
So with great pleasure and love in our heart, we are asking you to come and sit here.
Oh boy.
And give a nice, beautiful glimpse of your heart.
Oh, thank you.
That is bringing so much joy to everyone.
I'm happy to sit here.
We are tagging you with a smile. No, come sit here. This is a special place.
I
Come.
see. Okay. Well, it does feel like walking into a family. I mean, there's so many beautiful connections, from knowing Vimi to, of course, both of you. And interestingly, Hemaji, when we first met, she was trying to do something on the Mac. And then when Shunyaji came, we ended up talking about Macs and Steve Jobs. And then in the second sentence, we said, yeah, Steve Jobs had this spiritual connection, and he was very connected to Neem Karoli Baba. And it ends up that Shunyaji's great-grandfather was part of his posse of meditators was Neem Karoli Baba. There were 5 or 6 of them. They were all meditating together, and he was one of them. And so it was like, wow. And then we were talking about Maheshji and Veena, and this is a true story, right? We were talking about it just half an hour ago. Hemaji gets a call from Veena in Chicago, just out of the blue, right as we were walking here, So, there's so many density of so many interconnections, and that's beautiful. And Geet, thank you for sharing such beautiful stories. Yesterday was a Wednesday, and so my parents did host, as usual. Like, they open up the living room, and all these people come, and they've been doing it for a long time. And when we started, it was just me, my mom, and another friend, and we said that let's all discipline ourselves to meditate, to cultivate, to educate ourselves about what is our nature, and just support each other in that way. But we just left the door open instead of closed. We said, look, and then my mom said, look, I have to feed you anyways, so whoever else comes, I'll feed them, And who would have thought that she would have fed 30,000 people over so many years, and people, it's stunning to me how people come. Yesterday, at 5:30, usually if some people want to, chat, I'll say, okay, maybe we can meet an hour before. So yesterday there was this guy named Evan. I'd never met him. Last time he came, I wasn't there. He came about a year ago, and he describes his whole beautiful journey. He had this, awakening experience, and he's talking about some very beautiful things. And then he says, the Wednesdays, it's very interesting how we're all interconnected. I said, what do you mean? And whenever there's a story, my ears perk up, you know, it's like, I want to hear the story. And he's like, well, so I was in Copenhagen in January this year, and everybody rides their bicycles, you know, and he was kind of in some state, and he was riding his bicycle, and he sees an Indian man, as he says, and I didn't know him, but he said, something in me said, I need to go and talk to him. So he goes up to the stranger, and he says, sir, I feel like I need to talk to you. Would you be kind enough to spare a few moments? And it ends up that they talked for 3 hours, and that guy in Copenhagen had been there on a Wednesday, and they figured out that they had Wednesdays in common, right? All the way in Copenhagen. I mean, unbelievable. So we had this beautiful connection, and I want to talk to you a little bit about Seva, which all of you already know. But we had this really great connection, and as we were coming down, he says, you know, the thing I loved the last time I came to your home was in the bathroom. There's this awesome meditation poster, you know, and it's got this frame. You guys remember? You know, it's like right up on the, it's in the bath. It's like a thing that somebody had given me for my birthday. Had a bunch of, it's a meditation poster, so it shows like, well, I'm not going to describe it. It's beautiful. And he says, I loved it so much that I was in the bathroom and I took my iPhone out and I took a photo of it, you know. And so he's telling me this as we're coming down, and he's about to walk into that bathroom, and so I said, oh, you mean this one? And he's like, yeah. I took it down, and I said, here you go, it's for you. And this guy just, you know, it's almost like if you ever had that moment of speechlessness, where you just know, like, that all the energy inside you is like bursting, and that person's body is like, you know, this big, and they're just like, oh my God, where am I? You know, and they find themselves not anchored in themselves anymore. It was one of those speechless moments. And this was just yesterday, right? And he says, as soon as he comes to some, which he says, no, I can't. You know, this like belongs in your house. You can't just give it to me. And I said, yes, you can. You know, and of course, it's very hard, right? Imagine if I said, oh, this is so beautiful, and it'd be like, please take it with you. You know, it's like, that's kind of awkward, right? Because I don't want to take that. So I said, you know, well, this is beautiful. Yeah. That's why I didn't point to something. No. So I said that, so I wanted to show him through a story of how it's actually, how he's doing us a favor by accepting that gift. So I said, you know, there was, I think I want to say about 3 years ago, our house was being fumigated. So they put this whole thing around the house, and they come in. When it was being fumigated, these guys, a bunch of robbers came in and decided to steal stuff from our house. We're simple people, so there wasn't much to steal from our house. But my mom, you know, she feeds so many people. So we have a lot of grains. I always say our garage is like a grocery store, you know. I literally go shopping in our garage, you know. I like this, gift economy. And of course, when you fumigate it, all the food has to be, you know, tucked away. So what my mom had done is taken all this food and put it in the car so that it's sealed off. Now, these guys couldn't find anything all too valuable in the house. Then they go in the garage and they're like, there's a car and it's loaded with all this food in there. So they stole the car. Only thing they did was just the car. Now, you feel violated when somebody comes in and steals anything from your house, right? And naturally we did. But my mom's response was really amazing, because she says, you know, that food was for other people anyways, so may they be happy, whoever got the food. And I'm talking to Evan yesterday, and I said, do you know what a gift that is? To be in that state of mind where you can just say, if it's taken, it's gone, it's fine, may they be happy. If you receive it, wonderful, I receive it. Right? Give and take, both parts of both, very effortless, very seamless. And says, you know why she got that? Because she worked so hard every single Wednesday to host all these people. And when you try to give in small ways, right, There's a little shift inside you that starts opening, and that shift then starts to give you this attitude of, hey, I'm free. I don't need to carry all my stuff with me. You know, you just like let it go. And that gift is priceless. So you actually, by taking this, are giving me the opportunity to be in this state. How valuable is that? It's priceless. So now he was already feeling like this, and now he's like, oh my God, what the heck? What do? I don't want to take this, but like, how can you say no after that story, you know? And so he ended up taking it, and before the end of the day, I had somebody like ended up wrapping it with all the Chaos of Wednesdays, and so it was like this nice bow, and it was so beautiful. But it got me thinking of the 4 different kinds of giving, you know, that we do. And this is probably the thing that I want to talk to you about. First is helping. And helping is a good thing. It's meritorious in its own ways, but helping has this, it's like I'm helping and someone else is receiving. So there's this hierarchy in that helping. Another form of offering, being generous, is fixing. You say, oh, these people in India, gosh, they don't know how to build roofs over their head. Let me go and fix their situation, you know. But when you do that, you go and you see life as broken. Right as you go in, you're broken, so let me fix you. You know, it doesn't feel good to be on the receiving end of that. But a lot of people do that, you know. UN does that. This is how we do aid in the world. Then there's a stage of serving. And serving is great, because in serving you say, we're going to co-create. I bring something to the table, you bring something to the table, and we both co-create. And that's a really beautiful thing. And that's usually where it stops. Like usually that's where people look at this and say, that's great. But the Indian scriptures, and all the sages, I would say, across millennia, have always talked about a 4th kind of giving. And that is offering. Where it's not even co-creation, where the person giving is actually feeling indebted to the person receiving the gift. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to give to you. And it's almost the opposite. We're helping you have this top and down, right? With this, it's like the person giving saying, oh, thank you. You know, Buddha would talk about that. He would say, if you knew what the value of a small act of generosity really was, you would never have a single meal without giving. And I remember in India, we would take out food for birds and animals before we had our meal. And then we say our prayers, and we always go out. These are very significant things. So that would be the essence of my work, so to speak, to cultivate in this heart of the offering, right, where I always feel that you have an opportunity to grow when you have an opportunity to give. And that to give somebody an opportunity to give perhaps is probably one of the jackpot opportunities that you can have in life. So I don't know how we want to structure. We could do question and answer, or I could share more stories. I've got lots of them. I could give you some conceptual ideas. One of the things that we talk about are the 4 key shifts around this. So one is to move from consumption to contribution. So there's this idea. Usually we knock on a door and say, what can I receive? Right? What am I going to learn? What am I going to get? How is this going to improve my life? It's always about me. But how do you flip that and you say, what can I contribute? In every conversation, right? Right now I may be talking, but as you're listening, you could say, oh, how can I give to this guy? This guy is talking, but through that talking, he's trying to reconnect to a deeper part of himself. How can I hold space for that? So even in this moment, let's say you contribute by your attention, and I have the same attitude, and I say I contribute by sharing what I can in the most authentic way. And if 2 people who are contributing end up coming together, it creates a very different dynamic than, wait, I want something from you, I want something from you, you know. I was at the UN last month, and I decided to do my own Gandhian act of satyagraha. I said, because everybody does this whole transactional thing, you know, it's like they size you up, it's like, okay, tell me who you are, and I'm very busy. I mean, not me, but that's how people would think. I'm very busy, And so, you know, I need to know if I want to spend 2 minutes of my time with you or not. So I'll size you up, give you a business card, look at the title, and then you talk, right? Otherwise, you just kind of gloss over it. It's not fun, and it's not all that wholesome, right? And I just, my act of satyagraha was, I decided I'm not going to take cards at all. So it's like the totally, it's, you know, it's, you could say it's a waste of a major opportunity, but I would just be like, yeah, you know, nice to meet you. I actually don't have business cards, but I've got a smile card, you know. And you'd be surprised how people, and these are, you know, what the Forbes magazine headlines were, they called it, these are the next generation billionaires learning how to give back. Ban Ki-moon, who's the UN Secretary General, came to address us. You know, so this is very, you could say, like, great opportunity to connect with these great people, but, you know, but how deep are those connections? And how, if you're just looking for consumption, it's a very different space that you get in. So many stories around that. I think I learned it most when we went on a walking pilgrimage in India, my wife and I, in 2005. We sold everything we had and put a few boxes in my parents' house, and we went to India. This is 6 months into our marriage, because we decided to, we said we're getting married to cultivate truth, you know, to be stronger in our cultivation. And so it was very clear to us that that's what our lives were about. And so we said, you know, we had this crazy idea. We said we were doing all this stuff, and materially we're poor, you know, but we have done so much service work that it creates a lot of deep ties and friendships, and so you have a lot of influence, and with that influence comes some amount of power, and with that power is very dangerous, you know, it can corrupt. And how do you know that you are free from this corruption? There's only one way to find out. Can you let it all go? And we were like, wow. We thought about it and we said, darn, it's such a good idea, we're going to have to do it, won't we? It's like drop your whole life and just take off. It's like, okay, all right, you know, we decided to do it. And we said that no return ticket, no, I mean, imagine trying to convince your mom and dad about this, you know, especially if you have an Indian mom and dad, where you say, yeah, we've decided to get rid of everything, go on a one-way ticket to India we're just going to walk, we're going to eat whatever food people offer us, we're going to sleep wherever place is offered, and, you know, maybe we'll come back, maybe we'll die, maybe we'll be different, you know, it's like, which mom would say yes to that, right? I mean, it's a crazy thing. But I've always been very clear that you always want to go with people's blessings, even from the early on days. So I said, Mom, we can argue about it as much as you want, but you know how it is. I'm not leaving until you give me your blessings, you know. So if it means you and I are talking for, you know, 3 years, then that's fine. I'm here for the long haul, you know, but I'm going with your blessings. And they did, you know. We had the same situation when I decided to quit my job in my early 20s, and my mom's like, no. And I said, great, no problem, let's talk about it, you know. And so we went to India, and we actually walked, and we went through a lot of experiences, which I could tell you hours and hours worth of stories. You know, when you do that, you're on the edge of your material circumstances, but also on the edge of your internal consciousness, because you're stripped naked of all the veneer. Right? Now it's like you go to a villager and you say, okay, here's my card. He doesn't even know. Who cares, you know? You go and say, I know such and such. You go and say, nothing matters. What matters is how you can look at this person in the eye and say, not even say, he has to feel it, because sometimes you can't even speak the same language. It's love. Right? You have to generate love. You have to be in that space of love. And this is not love that's a dictionary word. This is love that guy has to feel, otherwise you're starving. So it's rubber meets the road. It's, you know, it's like when you are blind. When I was young, I took some music class. I'm terrible at music now, but I took some music classes, and we had, our instructor was blind. But because he was blind, he was really tuned into his senses of hearing, you know, and he was really good at music in that same way. If we're not so caught up in Maya, if we have some renunciation, we get tuned in to love. And you will we surprise ourselves with the capacities that we had, that everyone has, you know, but we just don't, it's like we're just not counting on it, you know, and so when you count on it, it really creates beautiful ripples. So one of the things that we learned, one of the biggest things, hey guys, one of the biggest things we learned was this shift from consumption to contribution. Every door you open, you have to say, how can I contribute? You walk into a villager and he's not interested in what you know, what you picked up, whatever, even spiritual thing. He's like, look, I got trash outside my house and no one's picked it up. Okay, I'll pick it up. Let me serve you by picking up your trash. We did that. There would be so much plastic in these villages. It's kind of sad, actually. And we would just pick up plastic, you know. There were many people who would carry hay, huge amounts of hay. And they say, okay, you know, you're like my grandfather. Can I carry that hay? And, you know, you have to work at that even to let them give you that opportunity. But they do. And somebody's car is stuck in your walk. You're like, okay, can I push your car? You know? And pretty soon you start to realize it's not about you. Right? It's about what you can contribute. Every moment you're thinking, how can I serve? How can I serve? How can I give? And that starts to have a cumulative effect over time. And that's extremely, extremely powerful. So yeah, lots of stories around this shift from consumption to contribution. And how when we come in that, if everybody comes in a circle, if we hold a circle with this heart of contribution, the synergistic value that emerges is remarkable. The second big shift of the four is the shift from transaction mindset to trust. And I think some of you have been to Karma Kitchen before. Certainly some of you have. Have you been to Karma Kitchen before? No.
You?
Yes.
Oh, no.
No, okay. I feel like I met somebody that maybe had that same energy. But that's how I first heard of Vedika, actually, even before both of you told me about it. Someone had come, and someone was visiting, in fact, from Pune, and they took the check. For those of you that aren't familiar with Karma Kitchen, it's a restaurant that we run on Sundays in Berkeley. Now, at this restaurant, you go and you have a meal like any other place, and your check reads 0. Now, 0 because somebody before you, whom you don't know, has paid for your meal. And you get to pay forward for somebody after you, whom you don't know, will never say thank you to you. And when you trust people to do that, will that chain continue? Now, you go and talk to business schools, and you know what they say? No. You know, no way, man. People are just going to take, and then they're going to run away. You know, I mean, any quote-unquote sensible person would say that, because we're so conditioned with that, right? Economics, the basis, the root base value of economics is people operate to maximize self-interest. Talk to any economist. Aren't you, Mr. PhD?
I'm not an economist.
You're not an economist, yes. He hates it when people call him economist. But people operate to maximize self-interest. Is that really so? After that earthquake in India, I guess many years ago now, right, there were all these stories of people in Kutch, this was in Gujarat, this massive earthquake. Moms, their babies right there, they see the house crumbling. Mom goes in to protect the child and dies, but holds herself in a locked position until her baby is safe. Do you think that's self-interest? She's dying. It's not. Our fundamental nature is not selfish. But yet, we have no designs, no systems where we can practice our selflessness. So you walk into Karma Kitchen and you say, look, I'm not treating you as a consumer. I am seeing the deeper part of you, and I know that deeper part of you is generous. I know that deeper part of you is interconnected. I know that deeper part of you cares to be selfless. How long do you think that would continue? We didn't know. We tried it as a one-time thing. We were all in a meeting, kind of like this, right? And we said, let's try something. And we decided to try it. Okay, let's rent a restaurant. And we rented a restaurant. And we were like grassroots people. We don't have like many resources. You know, we're like, okay, well, let's pool enough to, you know, people throw parties at restaurants. You rent a restaurant. So we said, let's pool enough money so we can run a restaurant for one day. And we'll see if people will pay for the 1 week after. People paid. And then next week, people paid for the week after, and the week after, and the week after. And someone came and said, you know, I'd love to start this in Washington, D.C., because that's where all the officials are. And they started it in D.C. We said, yeah, we have a little surplus, actually, so we'll give it to you. You can start it in D.C. And then someone said, we'd like to start it in Chicago. And so it says, okay, well, D.C. gave it to Chicago, you know, and the chain has continued. And now there's a little counter. I don't know if you guys have seen it on our website. It's like up to 25,000 meals, and it's going. You know, people are paying forward for each other. It's like a toll booth lane where everyone is paying toll for the car behind them. You would think, you would say, would that work? Would that not work? You talk to business schools, and I have. They scratch their heads. You know, they're like, no, it can't be. I said, you know, and you take them out of their role, and I'm like, look, I don't care about your business card and what you do and all that. Throw all that away. Give me a hug. Right? You like the hug, right? Yeah. What's the GDP value of the hug? You know, it's like, come on. You know, it's like we measure everything with this gross domestic product, but you know, in India they look at the GDP, but it's like everyone cooks at home, and so if they all just ate out, the GDP would go up. But mom couldn't put the love into the food, you know. You wouldn't get the Wednesday food. You wouldn't get the Vedika food here, right? I mean, that's a very different, there's a different flavor to that because love counts. The vibration counts, you know. And so how do you create those systems around that? You know, you go to Starbucks and you say, hey, you know, my wife actually went to a coffee shop one time, gets coffee, and she says, the person behind the counter is like, okay, it's like whatever, $2. And she says, oh, sorry, let me just go run to my car. I left my wallet in my car. And the woman says, oh, no, that's okay. Just come back tomorrow. Just come back tomorrow. She just trusted him. She wouldn't, you know. But would somebody at Starbucks or would somebody at Walmart, could they trust you even though they feel that inner connection? They can't, because they have to get boss, and boss has to do this, and boss, you know, it's like they're stuck in this system where their humanity can't be free. Right? So we create these systems where we're actually saying, look, you're selfish, you're ignorant, you're not really responsible, you're going to make, you know, bad decisions, and so we're going to bind you, you know, all these constructs where it's like, oh, it's against these rules, and oh, it's this and that, so you can't really be human. So it's how do you create context where you can practice trust. Very important. Third thing would be a shift from isolation to community, where selfishness is so isolating. We held a retreat in India last year, and we invited, I don't know if you guys, how many of you guys have done organizing, but the way to, like, the standard practice in organizing is like, Maheshji, you know, Shunyaji is coming. Would you like to come? And I'll say, Shunyaji, yeah, you know, Somik is coming. Would you like? And Somik, Maheshji is coming. And like you make all these kind of false lies. You know, you try to lure everybody in, and you say, oh, this person's coming, this person, okay, okay. And actually, people will come if you do that. But if you look, if you look a little deeper, you lose authenticity. You lose the vibrations. The people may show up, but gods are not going to show up to that. So we decided to do this retreat. And we said, there's a bunch of people that have these connections with me and Jay. We said, we're going to have this retreat. Purpose of the retreat is to build compassion quotient and to come together as family. You're not going to get anything. I know you're busy. I know you're running an organization. There's going to be no fundraising here. There's going to be none of that. And we don't even know who else is coming. I'm just going to be honest with you. you got to come because you want to grow love in the world. It could just be 3 of us. You want to roll out. You know, it's just totally honest, totally clear, and not playing any games. Right? And the guy says, and we said, look, yeah, there is IQ in the world. There's a lot of people who practice that. There's a lot of EQ in the world, too, emotional quotient, but not a lot of places for compassion quotient, right? CQ. And if you don't have those places, if we don't nurture that, how are we going to, well, before we can even create that, we have to practice it. So here you go, you're invited, you know, you want to come. And these people said, okay, yeah, I want to come. And 50 people showed up, and it was amazing. At this place, and now imagine all these people who've said yes to that. It's their whole organizing principle is different. It's not because this person is coming and this person and this person. There's no, it's like real. Right? We open with everybody planting a tree on that land to honor the land. And we close, in between we had all these like beautiful things. We created secret angels. And these are all like leaders of organizations, you know, doing, we said, you got to be a secret angel for someone else. And so everybody got as anonymous, not anonymous, but you get a little sheet, and you have to basically make this person smile at all costs over the next 3 days when we're together. It's like, that's your job, right? And so one guy just like SMS'd the other guy, like every single hour he was SMSing him positive quotes, you know. And the guy's like, who the heck is doing that, you know? And someone else, my wife was there, and someone, she loves tea, you know, and so somebody just decided to, right as she was about to wake up, they kind of see, they keep an eye, you know, and we're it's all community living, right? So you're like on a terrace somewhere, and they keep an eye on her. Oh, she's about to wake up. Okay, they get some tea and they put it by her bedside, and they're like, I see your secret angel has left you this tea. There was this really old man. He was like a Gandhian, dedicated his whole life. He owns nothing, he has nothing, but pure vibration. He was such a great guy. And Gopal Dada, you know, and so Gopal Dada was like there, and how do you tag? Now you can't go out and buy anything, so you have to deal with whatever is there. And so a bunch of people find out what his favorite song was, bhajan, and they had 5 people learn that bhajan, and they all held hands, and while he was sitting on the bench on the side, they were all like singing this song for him, you know, and like it was just really beautiful things that people were doing. And then what happened is, as the energy, you can imagine, 3 days you do this, I mean, people are just like, oh man, I gotta bowl this person away, I gotta do this, I gotta do it's like, oh man, oh yeah, oh, that was really great what you did, and I'm gonna step it up, I'm gonna do this, you know? And so they were starting to get really outrageous acts of love, you know? It was really starting to get very outrageous. And this is the kind of cocoon you want to be in, you know. So there were two young brothers that were there, and they were awesome people. But they were also like their mom, their dad had passed away when they were very young, and their mom was a janitor, and her whole life she was just sweeping at a school, and she had had this moment. So when they went up the day before, they shared a story of how their hero is their mom. Because her mom, who is a sweeper, had this conversation with this guy who says, she says, I want to be of service. I want to help. I want to serve. I want to offer in this way. But I have nothing. What can I do? And the guy says, everybody has something. You're sweeping, and you're going through the trash. Now kids throw away pencils that are maybe this big but still usable. What if you collect those pencils, and I will give them out to folks in the slums? And she started doing that. For 18 years she's been doing that. She collects these pencils from trash, but with the intention for it to go out and spread smiles in the hearts of kids that can't even afford those pencils. So these two at our retreat share the story of their mom. It was just so, and I'm only giving you like a very surface level thing. I mean, it touched us deeply, you know, to see this woman. And this other guy for whom one of them was a secret angel, they said, what we got to do is get his mom here on the last day. And so, and it was all set up, and he managed to get other people. It's like, Samikit, you got to make sure these two sit next to each other, you know. And so somehow they were both sitting next to each other. We were all doing a prayer. Eyes were closed. Mom the head of rickshaw comes in, they open the eyes, and one hand, and mom has Parkinson's, she's seated on the chair behind them, one hand on one son's head and the other on another son's head. And oh my God, you can imagine. And there was a guy there who had sang this song, and he said, you know, it was a very simple song, but he says, Hari Narayana, Sabme Narayana. So he says, everyone is Narayan, everyone is God, everyone is one. And then he went and he says, Ripa Narayana, Shunyaji Narayana, Git Narayana, Samik Narayana. And as soon as you do that, it's like you can, I mean, you hear your name called. It's already such a powerful thought that we're all Narayan. And then to be seen that way, and after here you have this mom come in with two hands on her two sons, who's a janitor, and yet doing acts of love. And then she gets up and she has the arti thali that you had earlier. In the thali, she had those pencils. And everyone is singing Hari Narayana. And this woman is taking the thali and giving prasad of one small pencil from the trash to everybody. Do we need business cards there? That's community. That's love. 100%. I can call any of those guys up anytime, and they will respond just as I would respond for any of those guys. And what was our connection? Not that I can be useful and he can be useful. It's love is our connection. And that's the shift from isolation to community. When you tap into that, when you let go. It's a bit heavy, I know. So beautiful. And the last thing I would say for the shift would be the shift from abundance, rather, from scarcity to abundance. So how do you shift from saying there isn't enough, I need to protect for myself, to just let go of that? Anyone can give. There is enough. There's plenty to go around. Right? The birds are not saying what's, mine and what's yours. It's enough. It's nature's bounty. It's fine. The child inside Geet's stomach is not saying, what's my 5-year business plan? It's saying, no, I trust mom. Right? That's what we all did. It's a beautiful thing to tap into that space of abundance. And how do we do that? Even at this retreat, there was a rickshaw driver in India, and this guy said, I'm a rickshaw driver. I make a little bit of money, And, I don't know if you guys have been to India, but these rickshaw drivers, it's like, especially when they see, certainly if they see someone with white skin or someone with non-brown skin, but even me, right? They'll say, oh, this guy looks like he's from South, let's take him all the way around the block, So it's like, yeah, I want to go to San Jose. Okay, yeah, Los Angeles is just on the way. And it's not, but it is. It's how they do that, right? It's a standard practice. And we look at that, and we come home, and we have conversations. We say, these rickshaw drivers, moral ethic of this, the moral fabric of our country is just going down. These rickshaw drivers are just like, look at, it's even them, like forget the big guys. But we forget, what is that rickshaw driver's like? Right? Have you seen the numbers of inequities? Even in this country. Grotesque. You could even say sinful if you're religious. Inequities. It's so much in the hands of so few and so many just starving. And so you actually go. And I lived at this guy's home. I'll go stay in the slums and stuff. We started a compassion gang in the slums. And it's great, And so I went to this guy's house. He had a house maybe from there to here. 9 people. They all sleep outside and they share this common space inside. Right? They have their food and they have a little sink and they have a little area where they... What is this guy supposed to do? Right? He looks at somebody and he says, oh, he looks like he's got some money, he's wearing a nice shirt. Maybe he could give me 10 extra rupees. But he probably won't, because we don't live in generous times. And so maybe I could just take that little extra detour, right? Well, you could say I'm selfish, but actually I'm doing it for my son, because I don't want him to have to go through the kind of life I have. It's a very complicated things, you know? Is that justified? No, absolutely not. But is that a tough situation to be in? Absolutely. So somebody has to break this impasse. Who's going to do it? So there's this one rickshaw driver. He says, I believe in abundance. Sign me up. I don't have much, but abundance doesn't have anything to do with how much you have. I want to tap into that space. Sign me up. I'm willing to trust in the goodness of people. And what he decided to do is run a gift economy rickshaw. So in this rickshaw, you go for your ride, and he says, your ride was a gift from someone before you, and you get to pay forward for people after you. And this is a rickshaw driver. This is not like Bill Gates coming and telling you, look, I got millions in the bank and I believe in generosity. This guy's saying, I need this money for my family's food, whom I love a lot, but I'm counting on you to pay forward because I trust. And you don't even have to give to me out of guilt. There's a little box. I won't even know how much you've given me. That guy's still running his rickshaw. He still makes it. He's talk of the town. All over Ahmedabad, in Gujarat, all over the media. And they're like, who are you doing this for? They're, no, look, there's no organization. I'm doing this. Everybody can do this. I just decided to trust people. And I make about the same amount. And here's my book list, you know, that shows you exact finances. He records every single thing. Just to show people that, look, actually, people are generous if you count on that. And he says, guess what? Not only this book, but take a look at this book. This book is where people leave me heartfelt messages. Not just the money, then there's this activation of something else. And I feel so blessed, and look at my smile. You know, I live in that home with 9 people. See how happy I am. Real story. You know, it's been all over the press. Everybody can do that. You have to tap into that space of abundance. Can't have the scarcity thinking. It's hard, but it's important, valuable. So those are the 4 big things along the journey, you know. And it's a beautiful, beautiful journey. And there are many people like Michael, who has been spreading smile cards for many years. He's been shipping every single week. I don't know how often you get the orders, but Michael has been doing this for a very long time. There are people who are dedicated to just spreading goodness. Smile cards are these beautiful projects, as you know, where you leave a small little smile card for somebody. You do a small act of kindness. And you would think, most people, you say, well, small acts, you know, is great. Yeah, how is that going to change the world? There's so much. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. It takes those small acts. Evan got that little small frame. I can tell you, he's not going to forget that for the rest of his life. And we all have that opportunity to take those small acts and do something in every moment. But not just look at it as small acts. Ultimately, everything is small. There are no big things we can do. We confuse it because we tend to think, oh, I have done this big stuff. But if you look past that, right, there's like so many, it's a whole lineage. And so many causes and conditions have allowed even that lineage to exist. How can you say this is the cause? You cannot. That's just that's an illusionary thing. It's nice if you want to go on CNN and give a 1 second or 1 minute soundbite. This is the reason. But actually, if you want to feel it, you can never reduce it to that way. Like, how can you do that? It should be illegal to do that, if you ask me. You just have to. You know, I got an award. Were you guys there? Maybe you guys were there a couple of years ago, and they put it on this big screen, all the impact that the work of Charity Focus has had, you know. And I said, first thing I said is like, you know, I really appreciate this. You want to be gracious, you know, but at the same time, I was like, can I request you to take that off? Because what I'm going to talk about is the exact opposite of that impact, because that's the stuff we measure. But let me tell you about my great-grandfather. He was very poor, and he used to take the thrown away wheat grains, and he would crush them by hand and go and feed anthills. Tell me, what was the value and impact of that? Put all your McKinsey consultants, all the smartest people in the world, and tell me the impact of that. There was no award for my great-grandfather, but I will tell you the impact of that, and that is the story of my grandfather. And I will tell you the impact of that, and that is the story of my mother. And I am here, and this is 4 generations too late. But actually, it's not even 4 generations too late. It's impossible to quantify. How can you even say? Really, if you think about it, how can you just say grandfather? Because with grandfather, there was a whole ecosystem. With that whole ecosystem, all those causes and conditions come here. And so if you really sit down, like, all you can do is just resign, be blown away, and just be like, oh man, whoever comes in front of my doors, I bow down and I serve them. A story, I will end with this story. It just came to my mind, such a beautiful story. I gotta make sure I don't cry, because I'm already starting. It's the story of Nag Mahasaya, who was one of Ramakrishna Paramahansa's disciples, one of his few disciples. But he was very poor. And so the thing that he would always want to do is visit Ramakrishna Paramahansa. But he couldn't afford the fare. And so he would take boats and he would walk, and it would take him such a long time to go to visit Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and he would still do it. And he was such a devotee. And I guess I can say this here, perhaps some of you may understand the spirit of that devotion, but I'm sure on CNN they wouldn't understand. But anything that came from Ramakrishna was prasad. So if Ramakrishna Paramahansa gave him food, he would eat the plate, the leaves on which it's served, because it is from Ramakrishna Paramahansa. Like, his dedication, devotion, even if you read what Vivekananda had said, Vivekananda is a person that we all know of, all of Ramakrishna's disciples, because he was the one who carried out the message, and of course he was a remarkable person. But all his disciples were pretty amazing. And Vivekananda writes about Nag Mahasaya and the qualities that he embodied. And Nag Mahasaya, at one point, is told by his teacher, he says, look, Nag Mahasaya, you don't need to come here anymore. Whoever comes to your doorstep is me. Treat them like me. And here was a man who would take everything that his teacher gave him, and it was prasad for him. And he is saying, treat everyone like that. And Nag Mahasaya, there are stories of him where guests would come over, and he has no room, he has no space, and you give people things with dairy. Dairy is expensive in India. And so you want to give, if you honor the guests, you want to give something with dairy. And he couldn't afford it. So there was a story, one time someone came over and he says, I got to get him something. What do I do? Well, I've got this bed that I sleep on every night. It's kind of a very simple, raw bed. But you know what? I'm going to saw the bed in half, and I'm going to sell the wood, and I'm going to get some dairy, and I'm going to feed these guys, because my teacher said, everyone is me. Everyone who comes to your doorstep is me. And just imagine if we held all life with that reverence in every moment. Even if every moment is too much. Even if it was one moment every week. Even if you enter, if you just say, okay, Vedika is a place where I practice this. 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week. Just use this as kind of like at the swimming pool. Right? You learn before you go out into the ocean. And you say, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to practice love. I'm going to see the divine in everyone that comes my way. Even if it's difficult, even if it's tough, even if it actually hurts you, you say, you smile. You say, wonderful, I accept the gift. Because ultimately the cause of all these things is inside us. So I would just say thank you for doing that, and I hope you keep doing that more and more. And I'm honored to be here amongst family.
Thank you. Yeah? Very special. I'm sure students are going to enjoy chatting with you. Or just sharing something. It's such a joy to have you here. You are like there. We were talking earlier about how we're all helping each other by being role models. And you're definitely a role model for all of us. Thank you. And thank you for being in your stambha, be it the United Nations, be it picking trash, you are you. And it takes courage. And all great movements begin with one person. And one person daring to be Narayana, not Nara. So that is what we are also trying to be. But you put it so beautifully, so lucidly, and your stories. It's like you were sitting under a tree and we were all listening to you. I don't think you ever left your village in Gujarat. We can feel it. So I bow to your lineage, your great-grandfather, father, mother, father.
And likewise, it's all very co-created.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know, how it was all going to come out. I didn't, and I was rolling with the flow. And I feel, you feel, you respond. It's very dynamic.
Oh yeah, you feel them. You feel the energy.
Sure.
Yeah, and you can be yourself here, unboxed.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to be myself everywhere. But yeah, I'd love to, if any thoughts come up or any challenges, even insights. You guys are all so nice, so I can't ask you challenges, but that'd be great too.
Even if you want to just say thank you, say something.
I have a question. I was spending time with some friends last week, friends that I just met in that moment, and they've started doing a thing every day where they offer a free cafe on the street, and they take food or coffee or anything that they can come up with for free and offer it to other people for free. And so they have a table and a sign that just says free cafe, and people come, and most people pass by and sort of scratch their heads and wonder what's going on. And so I was talking to them about it, and they said that they were actually having quite a bit of difficulty in offering and having people accept and want to take free things.
Yeah.
So we were talking about some of the things that come up around that, and just sort of thinking about why it is that one wouldn't want to take something that was being offered to them. The word pride came up, and another thought I had was that I felt that I had so much abundance that I wanted to leave things for people who didn't have something. So all these different thoughts came up, and I was just wondering if you could speak to that at all in your experience of when there is abundance, and there's just that whole realm of offering and how that works.
Well, it's one of the first things you learn when you do these small acts is you learn how to get rejected. And what does that rejection mean? You know, I've got smile cards, and if you ever go out and try to do one of these smile card acts, you'd be surprised. People will say, "What's the agenda? Why are you doing this? Nobody does this for free. You say you're doing it, but really," and you can't blame them, because an average American sees 2,400 ads a day. And what are each one of those ads telling you? You are incomplete, you need this. Right? It's all pushing stuff on you. And now we are one message out of all those thousands and thousands of things that are all consumption driven. It's like, I'm just giving for the love of it, man. Thank you. If you would accept it, that'd be great. We had a bunch of people, kind of like this, that decided to do a lemonade stand in New York. And a bunch of them were, brown people. And this is post 9/11. And all they were doing was giving lemonade. Right? It's like, here, this is for you. Spread the love in the world, you know. And people are like, what's in the lemonade? And, you know, your color of your skin, and I remember 9/11, it's kind of, you know, it's very tricky. We were, for my cousin's 11th, or was it? Yeah, 11th birthday. We decided we were taking a flight together, and always on his birthday we'll do stuff for other people. And so he made these little smile stones with a smiley face, and we had a poem, and he put it in an envelope, and he created like 200 of these the night before, staying for other people. We're going to make other people smile, you know, and so he handmade all of these things. It was a lot. And we took all of these, and we decided we were going to do something while we were flying. And we said, hey, let's start while we're waiting for our flight, you know, and so we go and hand these out to people, and somebody alerts security. It's like, these people are giving out something, you know, could be bombs in there. And so red alert security, you know, it's like we're called in to whatever their headquarters of the airport were. And here's me and this 11-year-old whom I'm trying to explain generosity in this product, and he's going to be scarred for life, right? He goes in and it's like, what do you get? You get like top security with all these guns and stuff. What are you doing here? What's in that envelope? No, don't open it. Don't move that envelope. You know, it's like, okay. And as we were walking, I was thinking, what is the most skillful thing to do? Because I don't want him to have a negative experience around generosity. And I could understand, you know, the cops or the security's issues. You can understand they're whatever, they have their reasons for doing it. You could be or you could not be against racial profiling, but let's leave that aside. Okay, they call us in, and I said, Neil, you know what we got to do? We got to tag him before he even asks us anything. We got to give one to him, and we got to make him smile. That's our job. And that's what he did. So here's this 11-year-old, right? And going into this place where they're like trying to screen you and all this stuff. And we're like, sir, it's my 11th birthday and we're trying to make people smile, and this is for you. And it's like, your mandate might be to find all the terrorists, but everybody's got that humanity, you know? And he's going to open that up. He looked at it, and he's like, there's no agenda, there's no propaganda. It's a little poem and a little stone with a hand-drawn smiley face. How can you not be happy about that? And the guy's like, I'm so sorry, guys. You know, you go on back and keep spreading the love, you know.
I wanted to say something.
Yeah.
That in the early acts of doing a kind act, or, you know, giving someone agenda-less love or smiles, when we get rejection, it's really useful, because then we have to sit back and think, am I doing this for the reward? Or am I doing this because this is my agenda to spread out the love? And as many of you know, that my own change started happening in my own personal life, as I was mentioning. My beloved husband is about to come, and for a while there we used to fight like cats and dogs. It was the arena of my education, my inner education. And my inner self said, give love, give love. Just give love. Give love. Oh, give love. And now you just get love. you give love. Then my son, he's 16. Mom, give love. Just give love. And now my son's beginning to do this to my hair and come and kiss me here. But when I was giving him love, when he was growling at me for giving him love, leave me alone. Why do you touch me? I don't need to know you love me. What is it? Are you needy, Mom? Do you have dependency needs, Mom? This is what kids learn. And then people and patients and students where you are giving love and you're getting rejected. But then it's really about, as you said, it's agendaless. Because sometimes if you get the reward right away, the ego can grow. And then, we can wait for it. So I personally feel rejection happens a lot. But then the internal stumble happens that this is me. This is how I react. So this is just my story. This is just because I dealt with a lot of rejection and I deal with it a lot of the times. And people think we're weird for being loving. You're too loving. You're too soft.
Well, and some people are threatened by generosity. We actually had one of the maitre d's at Karma Kitchen right here in Berkeley got a death threat. And you're like, please, man, we're trying to spread love in the world. What? He's like, no, you have to work hard, and the winner gets to keep all the stuff, and that's the kind of ideology I believe in. And what are you guys doing with all this? You're going to have people all lazy, and this is like socialism. And we're like, look, there's no ism. It's all voluntary. Just chill. And he was livid to the point where there was this maitre d'. Unfortunately, it wasn't me. I really wish it was me. It was very hard. It was animated, and it was like, if I see you again, I'm gonna, and it's like, wow. And you look at that, and you say, you have to keep your inner center. You've got to keep your inner stampa, right? And say, I'm going to respond back with love. I'm going to respond with compassion. That's the practice. You do this in the swimming pool here, and then you take it out, and you keep your center, and you say, okay, fine, that's great. And you draw inspiration from so many people. There are 2 monks here who also super inspiring. They did 3 steps and a bow, a pilgrimage, across Highway 1 for 800 miles. Reverend Heng Sher and Marty Verhoeven. I mean, unbelievable. This is in the late 70s. And they're still here at the Berkeley Monastery. I mean, every 3 steps they would bow to the ground. And there would be people who, after 800 miles, 2 years and 9 months, they were just doing that, right? And there would be people that would come up and spit at them. There would be people who would come and throw eggs on their heads. There would be people who would... There was a gang initiation where all these people surrounded them and said, now you will be initiated, and your job is to crack this guy on the head. And everyone else is taking trash cans and all that, and go, 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 doing that. Right? And these guys had taken a vow, had taken this resolve as saying, look, for anyone that comes to us to harm us, behind that are so many causes and conditions. Right? And we will respond to that with compassion. Right? You can come back at me in any way, I'm going to rebound it with love. That's my job. That's my cultivation. It takes a lot to be able to do that. So you don't want to start doing it where it's beyond your capacities. Because, you want to be mindful. But these guys clearly had the capacity to take on these people. I mean, at gunpoint. There are 3 times they're at gunpoint. And they say, look, yeah, you may injure me, you may maim me. I wish you love. Because I know behind that action is anger. Behind that anger are so many conditions. And I am going to, instead of those conditions, go into some other place in the world. Good, it came to me. And I will rebound it back with love. I will take all that, and I will rebound it back with love.
An act of seva.
That is the true act of seva.
I forgot one really important piece of the story of my introduction to Nipun Mehta, which was actually meeting his parents at Manav Sadhana. And this happened very shortly after the Mumbai terrorist attacks, where his parents both were right before they got to Manav Sadhana. And I remember sitting with his mom after doing the prarthana, which is a daily prayer that we do at this organization, how I was just, I think, talking to her one-on-one, and she had shared how her son had sent her a text message saying that if this is your time to go, then be sure to go out the Gandhian way, without any hatred towards anyone. And I just remember being so touched by that here is a son who anyone else, would be like, oh, Mom, Dad, what's going to happen here in this terrorist attack? It's so scary. And yet, here was this fearlessness, here was this trust in the eternity of his mother's and father's souls, that he wanted to make sure that their souls were protected and not holding any of the hatred that they could very easily and naturally feel toward anyone else outside of them. And it just was such a touching experience that I'll always keep with me as a powerful lesson about that continual preparation, because that's ultimately what we're all preparing ourselves for, is that moment when we are to go, and how it is really the ultimate teaching from Gandhiji to say, to the person who would kill him, assassinate him, hey Ram.
Very powerful.
And I remember asking his parents to please come to the home that I was staying in, which was the home of Jayeshbhai, where Gandhiji himself actually had stayed for a couple of days just to sit in silence with me, and how they had honored that request and what a great gift it was to me. And then sharing with Nipun Bhai about how I was so blessed to be able to sit in silence with his parents, and how he said, well, we're already brother and sister. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah. My parents are so beautiful.
So I symbolically bow to them and
Yeah.
to that lineage that
Absolutely.
you are upholding.
That they are upholding. Thank you. To be reminded of that story. I'm always talking to my parents about death. And they're like, Nipun, it's every time, Nipun, it's not over until you finish it. You bring death up somehow. And I love them, but at the same time, you know that everything, you can't hold on to any of this material manifestation. It's pointless to waste your energy in that, So we talk about technology and efficiency. I think there's this kind of spiritual efficiency to kind of get rid of the attachment so you can love. That's very efficient, It's okay if this is the last time we all meet. It's okay. It's wonderful. It's great, actually. First, it seems like, it's like, I want to hold on to this. It's like nice vibration. No, it's okay. This is a beautiful thing. And then once you get into that it's okay thing, then it's like, it's actually a miracle, that we all had this. There are so many conditions where, we could not have been together in this way. There's so many reasons. Everything had to be just right for all our ancestors for this moment to happen in this way. That's a miracle, right? I mean, wow. So how can you not be in complete, ecstasy with that, So there's a little bit of that. But to be rooted in impermanence is important. Yeah. It's going to be fun, not fun. Fun is the wrong word. It'll be interesting, to see how I'm able to process my parents' passing, or somebody really, or my wife, or my brother, whom I'm very close to also. Of course, to be human, naturally, but also to be able to see all this, and not just that, to be able to be anchored with all the different things that life may bring your way. You don't know what it's bringing your way. You could just go outside and your whole life could completely change right now, today. And do you have the internal anchoring to say, okay, that's fine, I accept that. Because ultimately it's an internal thing. They did research on lottery winners, and they found out that 2 years later or a year later, they returned to the same level of happiness. They did the same research. They did it with paraplegics, people who were fine, and then they lost everything, all their limbs, so they couldn't even walk. 2 years later, same level of happiness. It's if that's what we are living with, it's got very little to do with the external, a lot to do with our internal. And that's where all the diseases are actually manifestations. They're actually these signals for us to look inside. Of course, different rules apply to different, Ramakrishna was so sick when he was passing. I don't think he had a mental disease. So there's different things going on at different levels. So, you can never reduce it and say, oh, that illness is because you must have some problem. I don't know if you guys have heard the story of Vivekananda. All the disciples were near Ramakrishna, and he was vomiting a lot, and a lot of people were afraid that, they'll catch this thing, and it's kind of like, it's nasty, this old man, he's nice, he's spiritual, but, Vivekananda comes to the ashram, and he finds out that there's this whole tendency in people, and he calls everybody, and he's like, I forget, I don't want to misquote him, so I don't know what he said, but he said something to the effect of, stop being caught in Maya, this is nothing. And he takes all his vomit and he drinks it in front of him. And he says, you have to be strong, and if you are strong inside, this stuff cannot touch you. Not physically, but it cannot touch you. Your internal root. The stamba, I like that word. Cannot rock it. I'm not saying we all do that, but... And
Ramakrishna was in like this height of bliss while his body was failing, and he would say, he didn't have any association with it. It was like, yes, that is growing, yes, that is that. Just completely observing.
Yeah.
It is matter. Matter has to perish.
Yeah.
I am Sanatan.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. And it is said in our tradition that the gurus and the sant, when they feel somebody's pain, then all they can do is like drink some of it up.
Yeah.
So they take on their students' karma, they take on students' disease, because they can carry it.
Yeah. Because they have that.
Like you said, they said, I will let me be hit, because this poor person is so stuck with their prarabdha that they are hitting stones, but I can take it.
Yeah.
It's in the same way the gurus and the rishis like Paramahansa took it. Yeah.
This is beautiful.
Even in their disease, they are glorious.
Yeah. It's so cool, just so empowering, just to even have these kinds of thoughts, It's just right now, to just have that thought that, oh man, I want to stay so centered that no matter what comes, I will rebound it back with love, I'm going to walk out. Just that thought, even if I fail like 9 out of 10 times, even that thought alone is a remarkable thought. Is a remarkable thing.
Do you deal with fear? I'm just curious. How's that shown
me?
up?
Oh yeah. I fail 9 out of 10 times,
Okay.
so it's easy to talk about this stuff, But I used to fail like almost. It felt like 11 out of 10, and I've moved on to 9 out of 10. I deal with fear a lot, and I deal especially even on our walking pilgrimage, and not only for yourself, for your wife, right, who could be abused by somebody, and you're like here, and you're saying, this pilgrimage maybe it wasn't such a good idea, where it's like, can we run now, and then to say, okay, I took it on, to say, I'm going to practice. We've had those moments, and the question, it's so important to ask yourself the right question. The right question isn't how can I get out of this condition? Because it's bringing fear. How can I get out of it? That's the wrong question. You may be able to answer that. And you say, okay, well, to get out of this fear, I need security systems in the house, right? So you can answer that question, but it's the wrong inquiry altogether. Right? The right inquiry is, do I have the resolve, the commitment, the courage to be balanced with this, to be unwavering in the face of this, whatever that is. So my wife and I remember one particular moment, in particular on the walk, we asked ourselves that very question. He says, something really bad could happen, and we have a choice to go away or to go in. Now, to work out is, the situation working out doesn't mean you're not going to be unhurt by this. Working out means we are going to stay centered. We are going to bless them with love. Do we have that? Right? Because who knows? One small thing here and there, your whole life is different after that. And we had those moments, right? And we look at each other and we say, this is why we're together, by myself, I wouldn't have the guts to go in. And I would never let you go in. And she's thinking the same thing. We say, let's do it.
I would think that though you have fear, the quality of the fear is changing, and the things that put you in fear are changing. So it's becoming a deeper and bigger challenge.
Sure, yeah.
You're definitely not in that same fear that, it's because of taking fear head on, God has come in the fear and is leading you forward.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So it's very different kind of fear, different questions, different issues altogether.
Yeah, I'm not worried about my job, and I don't even have a job, so that's good. I wouldn't be worried about my sustenance, random strangers. I know that love is there, and I know that everything responds to love. That's my security. That's it, man. So so you have you're not worried about the mundane in so many ways. It's like once you got, love's the only thing, right, Prakash?
Well, how did you manage to come back? I just have this.
Oh, because it was one way, right? So a lot of serendipities, actually. We ended up at a monastery, and we decided to meditate. And then we came out and we were very confused. We said, is the pilgrimage internal or is it external? And I said, Guri, let's keep going. It's external. We got to go do this right now, And she says, no, I think it's internal. It's the same kind of thing, and I think maybe we ought to do it internally. Well, we happen to be at a monastery. And we said, okay, well, if we don't agree, let's wait, sleep over it, let's talk about it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, and we flipped positions. I was like, Guri, you were right. She's like, no, actually, you were right yesterday. And we said, okay, well, great, there we are again, stuck. Okay, sleep on it, and so we slept on it. And then the next day, we were like, I actually don't have a clue. And she says, that's what I was thinking. None of us have a clue, And so we said, well, what to do? Says, well, what the heck? If everything is manifestation of the divine, here's a coin. Flip a coin, And the coin said stay. So we ended up staying and meditating for 3 months at this monastery, which was very powerful, incredibly powerful in so many ways. And it so happened that my brother he had planned this completely unknown to us. He happened to be at that, was coming there for a 30-day retreat himself. And he happened to get jaundice, which is, it's a water-contaminated hepatitis B, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
And where you turn all yellow and and it's you can't, there's no cure for it, I guess. Maybe Ayurveda has a cure, but there's no traditional medicine cure. You just have to kind of rest for a long time. And there was no place, and he needed help, and he was right there. And that's my brother, So for the first time, we sat in a rickshaw to kind of take him to a place to get checked out, and then we had to move him to our uncle's place, and so we stayed there for a little bit, just kind of taking care of him. And that's how our pilgrimage ended. So it was, it kind of carried us, and it said, okay, now you've done all this, and now you do meditation, and now you do some seva of your brother, and then off you go, So
that's what brought you back.
That's what brought us back, yeah.
Quickly, just thank you so much for being here and sharing your stories. I find that what you've shared is so relevant to us and what we're working on here collectively, and for those of us who are really trying to be committed to a path of a sadhak, and for those of us who are being kind of reborn in our commitment to our sadhana and to accessing that deep part of the self or the soul like you're talking about. So I just really appreciate you, and just for just being real, and like Hemaji has said and so many others have said, for just sitting there as yourself and not trying to be anything but just flowing from the inside out. So you strengthen us, and thank you for just bringing yourself here.
I appreciate it. And you strengthen me, you know, in a very real way. It's when people come, you know, I met John Robbins. I don't know if you've heard of him. He brought vegetarianism to the West maybe a couple decades ago. And I said, you know, John, so many people must have come up and said thank you to you, but I wanted to just come and say thank you. And he's a tall fellow, you know, and he comes down and he's like, Nipun, this is the first time that you've thanked me, and I really appreciate that. And I was so touched that he honored my thank you in such a deep way, when it was like, yes, he had heard those words from so many people, but it meant a lot to him, you know. And I've come to realize, this was many years ago, but I've come to feel the same way, you know, that I feel like when somebody, it's like it adds a little wing, it adds a little sail underneath my wings, you know. And even to have like parents that like they're right here, you know. It's like and if I would have taken shortcuts, I wouldn't have that richness right here that you feel, that you can't see, that you feel. And it's about not taking the shortcuts, you know. It's about staying committed to that in the long haul. Like we got a 5,000-year plan, you know, 5 million-year plan. Like it's there's no, don't try to take shortcuts like, oh, let's get this done, and like in 2 years we want to be this or that. It's like, relax, man. There's plenty of time, you know. It's like, it's just make sure you don't burn any bridges. You don't build bridges. I told my mom when we went on the walking pilgrimage, you know, this is one of the most touching things. You know, it's very hard for a mom to even imagine like her son starving in India and like walking and going in all this. And I told, you know, it's very hard for her to say yes. And I told her, I said, Mom, I'm taking you with me, but you're going to be here. And so when you worry that your son is not being taken care of, is not being fed, I want you to feed someone else and know that that's going to reach your son. And that will be your sadhana. And my mom did that. You guys know the story where she made this puranpoli is what we call it, you know, and which I love, and she was just crying and crying one day, and she says, oh, I don't know how to get in touch with him. I don't even know. Is he doing the right thing? What's he thinking? You know, nobody else does this. You know, it's like, why my son? My bad karma. And then she's like, oh, I remember. I have to grow in that interconnection. I'm with him on this walk. And so let me grow and let me feed someone else. And that Wednesday she made puranpoli, which is something I really like with the Indian food for everybody. And my friend walked in early and he saw it and he told me this story, and it moved me to tears, you know, to know that there's somebody with you in that deep a way. For mom to let go and say, look, I support you so deeply that I'm willing to suffer, where I'm willing to go into that place in me where I'm disconnected and then try to be connected. It's so profound. And you feel blessed by these things, you know, and so it's a long way to say, man, you bless me by even the thought, and that I will carry that with me in all the moments forward, you know, and that's a very real thing. And I similarly share my blessings with all of you. You know, who knows who has out. It's not our job to figure out, you know, who's got what lineage. We just like give. You give, I give, we all give, man. Like, there's this tornado and somewhere, you know, one of my friends had a dream, I had a vision one time, and she's like, she was world peace, amazing person. And she says, Nipun, you know, I went up and I saw I saw Jesus, I saw all the saints, and then I looked down at earth, and there were no lines between all the countries, but you know what, there were these little bulbs, these little lights that were going on, and some were flashing really brightly. And I said, what is that? I want to learn more about that. I zoomed in, and I realized that was pockets of people resonating with eternal Sanatana values. And she says, from that moment on, I have decided to make a commitment to create that pocket of those Sanatana values, of those eternal values, wherever I go. And we have that. This could be a little blip, you know? A very significant blip.
We're a light bulb here.
Yeah.
We're very proud of that. We're talking to the whole universe through our mouth.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I've only heard and read yogis speak the way that you do. And it's really inspiring to see an average human being say the things that you're saying and convey the message that you're saying. And I learned so much from you today. And it's just a real honor and privilege to be in your presence at this moment.
Thank you. And I can assure you that I'm definitely an everyday person. But, you know, I, for the longest time, I used to actually, I was wishing that I had a gift. I would really wish, you know, I actually addressed an audience, very gifted audience, and I said, this was my opening, and I said, for the longest time, I was like, you know, I wish I was like, could fly through air like Michael Jordan, you know, I wish I could like play the piano like no one has ever played. I wish I could, you know, I do all these things. I wish I was super gifted student, or I wish I had like this really amazing body and I could run like Usain Bolt, you know. And he wasn't around at that time, but you know, and for the longest time I struggled to find that gift. And then I got to spirituality and I said, maybe I'm going to be gifted at this. You know, I met a guy on a plane, and when I was first time back, maybe I was 15, 16, and he's this mystic guy, and he, like, you know, it was a very unusual experience the whole way through. He said it was destined, and he broke all our patterns of thinking. It's a long story, but it was pretty amazing. And then I thought, okay, yeah, maybe I'm gifted spiritually. And so I would go out into the fields every morning as a teenager, you know, and I'd be like, maybe I could see light. Can I read people's mind? Oh man, that's such a cool thing, you know. It's like 13. That's the number you're thinking, right? You know, and, you know, didn't have any of that, you know. And it's like, darn, you know.
Thank God.
And then I bit by bit, especially in my teens, I came to this understanding that it wasn't about finding my gift, but actually it was about just being who I am. You know, and that's very powerful to do that, to not actually frame yourself in context of gifts. That's a very consumeristic thing to do. Why do we want to be gifted? Why do we want to? I should possess some powers that others don't? That's a sense of power. Why? I'm here to serve you, man. I'm like your servant. I went to my friend's house. First time I was meeting him, and now he's a friend. I say friend. I went straight to the dishes. I started doing his dishes. He's a lifelong friend. I can tell you, he's like, he was totally blown away. I just walked in. He was a single guy, divorced, going through a tough time, you know, and his house was a mess. And I said, oh, pile of dishes in the sink. Let me just do it. First time in his home. I had just met him the day before. He was hosting me while I was traveling. And I can do that. I can do dishes, you know. And we can all do those things, you know. And so why should we be looking for gifts? And as soon as I had that realization, that's when magic started happening, because then I don't have to worry about it. I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm just who I am. And what grace to be, and we're all like that, you know. And so I think we just have this kind of Kali-yuga culture where we're looking for that, but actually everyone's playing their own little part.
We forgot we are a gift, and then we go looking for it, agitated.
Exactly. Shuneji's got the punchlines.
That's for sure.
That's for sure, yeah.
It's really good to hear you, because it's so relieving for my students to hear someone. I talk all this stuff, right?
Yes.
In slightly more different terms. It's so relieving because you won't think you have only one more weird soul, you know. Now you have two. Well, him is also weird, so now you have three. So I mean, like, and then you guys are halfway weird. So this is the good weird, because in Kali Yuga, you know, we don't find that vibration, and so as we hang together,
Yeah.
as we have more of this coming together, like when you and Gauri met, you felt strengthened. When I meet with my students meet me, we feel strengthened, and when we meet you, we feel strengthened. It's not about this and that, because that's so old and broken and small record. It's about us.
Yeah.
We feel good.
Yeah.
That's why I have the punchline, because you're doing the tough life. I just get to do the punchline.
That's
You
important.
get to take the pilgrimage, but I'm like, oh, that's a pilgrimage I took when you took it.
Yeah.
Because when you did that, and when the coin flipped, and at that point the coin and your heart were completely connected. So you think you surrendered to the coin, but actually the coin surrendered to you, and something happened there.
There's another punchline.
But you see, when I was seeing your story, I could see you.
Yeah.
And I was just seeing how you all relaxed
Yeah.
and surrendered, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's great.
I would like to gift you a story.
Oh, I love it. That's my favorite gift. Please.
And it's a story about a book. And there is a person behind that book. And that person is you. I know you don't know this story, and it's not in the press. And first, I think I want to say this family is very special to us. His mom, dad, and brother, and you. I think, you know, there is every moment we are with you. You know, life is a journey of growing. Thank you. Story starts like this. A while back, I was on a conference call. It was for a project called, I think you introduced or somehow, I don't know how I got on that call. It was a regular call for a project called Global Abundance Project. That's a neat project, right? And on one of the calls, towards the end of the call, the presenter, he was talking about author of a book. And it was not the author himself who was speaking on the call, it was his friend. And he ended up, you know, after the call, it was not the main agenda of the call, we ended up having a very, you know, very deep conversation, and it led to Sri Aurobindo and the author of this book. And I think following Wednesday, I see you in, I don't know from where, we ended up, you know, having a conversation about it.
No kidding.
And I think you mentioned that, oh, that book, that author, you know, it's beautiful, but you know what? That book is banned in the US. You can't get a copy of that. And I said, that kind of raised the curiosity in me. Why? And what is the deep insight about this author, and what is he trying to put out? And so I think the conversation ended there. And next morning, this is the beautiful part. Next morning, it was a day when we had a study group. We have a study group every month for our yoga circle. And I see my friend walking with that book in his hand. And I said, wow. And he says, you know where it came from?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Our bookshelf in our parents' home is an open, what we call open source bookshelf. So anybody can just take a book and kind of leave a book. I used to love music, and so I had like all these CDs. This is like also in my teen years No, back when I was young. And it was like if I gave you my CD, I knew you had my CD. Like every single CD had my name and address, and it was like, yeah, I loved my CD. And at some point, CDs went out of style, and I was stuck with all these CDs. And I'm like, Nipun, great, you can go to your grave with your CDs, you know? Jeez, just relax a little, you know? You didn't need to, like, hold on to every single one of them. And so our bookshelf, it was my sadhana. And I said, okay, here's our bookshelf, and all these people come on Wednesdays. And anyone can take any book, you know, and they could leave a book. But initially, it's very hard concept for people to understand. So it would just take. So literally, my whole, like as my mom would say, when I used to work back in the days, like in my early 20s, most of my salary used to go in refilling that book. And I wanted the best stuff there. And it's like, let it go. And I have literally bought thousands of books just to practice this. It's my books, doesn't have a name, let it go. CDs, you messed up. And you don't want to take them to the thing. And now you look at that bookshelf and it's like thriving, you know. So there's this amount of karma that you have to put into it, you know, to resolve all the past attachments to it. And then once you hit that point, then it's equilibrium, because then it's magic, you know, and now it all sustains itself. But it didn't initially, because I had to learn that lesson. You know? And so we can really start to bring, and then magic happens. I mean, there's so many beautiful stories around that just bookshelf, you know. I bet that itself could be a book. Yeah.
Actually, this was like 5 years back, and that was the day when our dear friend Ramandhara, they had organized a meetup, and we were coming in there.
Yeah.
So that was the first time we were seeing you actually and listening to you. So Prakash actually had received an email from Ramandhara, and they said, okay, we have invited Nipun Mehta to come and speak at our home, so please come in, you're all invited. I'm like, one more talk and one more speech. And I was still not in the spiritual mode, you know, like I was still a young girl, like, you know, my aim in life was to make money and enjoy and do all those things.
I didn't know that.
Not interested. The only thing I did that time was just maybe volunteering a couple of hours in the library, and that I did just because I like to be among people, and that was not like I was doing a sadhana or a seva. And I'm like, should I really go to this talk? What it is, 2 hours of my life is, you know, very precious, and should I go and listen and all that. Questions were arising in me, and Prakash is like, no, I think we should go, and you should definitely come in. And then we go there, and I'm like, who is this yogi coming in? Is this an old guy, you know? Who's the old guy here? Like, I was looking for the old people there, because in my mind, old people are the people who are yogis, and they give talks about life and spirituality and philosophy. And I was like shocked, like when Dhara showed me, who's the speaker? He's the speaker? He's so young, he can't be a yogi, you know? Like,
It's like, I knew I shouldn't have come. It's like an elementary school student.
I was totally like surprised, and then I listened to him, and then I was listening to your talk, so, you know, everything settled in my head, and that day was the day that I have to say that it totally turned my life. Like I started thinking so much deeply about my life, and I think it's because of Nipun that I'm sitting here in Vedika also. My whole life has changed so much. I started thinking about service in a different way, and sadhana, and all the things changed in my life, like going about natural way of living, eco-friendly living. Everything started because of the talk that Nipun gave that day. So I don't think so I've shared it with you.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah. So,
it really reaffirms to me the belief in the small. We were just having a conversation about, like, how do you decide where to go? And I trust the social network. You know, I'm here. It's my love for these two is the reason I didn't think. I didn't process, like, how big in size. You know, I can't go to everything that I get invited to. But I decide by the depth of the connection. And if that depth is there, then you trust, man. And it's like, and that's the kind of thing where a lot of people think that it's, you know, I mean, I go to these things where there are circles, where it's like 5, 10, 15 people, and then I'll speak to 5,000 people. And for me, it makes I just kind of go with it, you know? And for a lot of people, it's very confusing how I decide. They're like, how to, you know, they meet me at a conference, they're like, we want you to come to this thing, and like such and such will be there. You know, they use the usual ways to kind of influence you. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know you, so let's sit down and hug and chat and, like, you know, do smile card acts together and let's share some stories, and then we'll see what emerges from that, you know, and that's very confusing. But to me, it's always reaffirmed itself because of this kind of things that you shared, you know, and that's so it's like the universe plants you just where you need to be, even if it's that random conversation with the woman on the plane next to you, which I had on my last flight, and she ended up coming to the meditation we had in Chicago the next day, you know. And so you just, I think it's a matter of treating everything with reverence, and that would be the one thing that I would hope that all of us continue to
I think, Nipun, whatever you're putting out is also coming back. You are here because I didn't Google you. I didn't know you'd been to United Nations. I just know the hearts of my students, and they lit up when they talked about you. So it felt like this must be something really good that I too want to, you know and my students. So there was a lot of trust operating, like at a level of soul, more than like, okay, here's this person, and anyway, Vedika doesn't work like that, but especially with you, because somebody personal had referenced. And really, this has been one of the warmest, sweetest evenings, you know, right, Mahasi?
Yes. So, and thank you for holding that space of such deep values, you know, and I hope that, and I know all of you will and are already doing that, but I hope you can continue to spread that goodness, you know, because if you really look at the world, we are in a minority in this time and age, and we are collectively keepers of this lineage in the Kali Yuga, you know, so we have to keep it going. This has to sustain, because these seeds will sprout, you know, millions of years later. So even if we get rejected, right, even if we are hurt a little bit along the way, we have to keep at it. We have to keep serving. And we have to do it together, and we have to support each other on the way. So I hope all of you continue to do that, and if there's a way that I could be helpful, please, by all means, consider me your brother, and I'm here. So, thank you.
Thank you.